In terms of long-term cost / performance, is it better to A, buy cheaper monitors and upgrade frequently, or B, buy more expensive high-performance monitors and keep it for a while? My experience would lean me certainly towards B, mainly because I've mostly done B and it's worked out really well.
Yeah.
But cheap monitors are cheap monitors. Like, they're generally not that great to look at. Like, if you can only afford a cheap monitor and that's what you have to make do with, then that's perfectly fine. But if you have the option of upgrading less frequently and going with a much higher quality panel, that is absolutely the way I would tackle that one.
Yeah, I think it really depends on, again, it always depends.
It does.
It depends on the specific segment that you're buying into. Like, there are some cheap monitor areas that are being improved quite rapidly. So, for example, if you bought 2 years ago a $500 like 1440p high refresh monitor, then these days you can buy that same thing for $300 or less, then you kind of haven't gone in on that high-end purchase at quite the right time. Like, you sort of, if you'd bought the cheaper monitor then, which still would have been pretty good, and then upgraded a couple of years later.
It's much the same though if you spend 200 then 200 again or whatever.
Well, it depends how expensive your high-end monitor is getting.
Yeah.
But I think
it's hard to put the value on having it 2 years prior as well and enjoy that 2 years of it. But not to add another complex layer
I think
to
it
this.
mostly comes from previous high-end 1440p monitors that cost $500 to $600 are actually worse than current cheap monitors.
There's a bad time to do it.
So there's kind of that, in that specific segment, you're kind of borderline on maybe buying the cheaper option in that sort of $200 to $300 range and sort of sticking there. But for example, if you were buying a 4K monitor, a 4K high performance gaming monitor from a couple of years ago, that's still going to be pretty good today, depending on the one you get.
Yep.
And certainly if you bought something like LG's 4K 144Hz panel last year, this year that's still a very good monitor, and it really hasn't, maybe I wouldn't recommend it as firmly as I did the previous year, but certainly you'd still be getting a very similar level of performance buying a high-end product today. So again, I think going B is great if you get going at the real high end. Like, if you're buying 1440p 240 hertz, 4K 144, those are going to last you a long time and are going to be better than buying a cheaper monitor now and waiting for that technology to get cheaper.
I think it's so complicated as well because it's not as cut and dry as a GPU that really reduces your gaming experience, the performance. Whereas, even if you bought on the tail end of the technology and you got it, say, 2 years ago, like the example you gave, you've still got that 2 years where you've really enjoyed that product, but it's still a valid product for many more years to come. Yeah, it may not be the best option available still,
exactly.
But are you really going to notice the difference that much? Like,
I mean, if you buy 1440p,
not to downplay monitor reviews, but if you've got a decent monitor, it generally will carry you quite long into the future, whereas the GPU ages rapidly and it's like, this just isn't working anymore.
Well, it doesn't, like, monitors are not a requirement for games. I think that's mostly what you're saying is, like, a GPU over time, requirements get higher. And
as long as it's not, like, suffering from horrible ghosting or flickering. If it's giving you a decent image, it's the right refresh rate, you can use that indefinitely, really. I mean, like I said, I used my Dell monitors for over a decade because they were high-quality IPS panels that were fantastic for work. Gaming does move a little bit quicker than sort of productivity-type stuff. But it's not going to be a situation where the monitor is really hurting the gaming experience. So,
no, I think the time it makes most sense to think about monitor upgrades is really when there's more generational leaps in technology, because again, you're not limited to your game needs 144 hertz, like, and it won't run if it doesn't. Like, that's not true.
It's nice if you're playing competitive. If you're playing competitive, it's something you need, but they're the kind of things you'd be on the lookout for going into it anyway. It's not like you buy 60 hertz and then 144 hertz comes out a year later. I mean, obviously there was the refresh rate arms race.
But those are the sort of things, like, if you have a 1440p high refresh or now medium refresh, like 144 hertz monitor now, there's not a lot of incentive to upgrade to something that's 20% better. Like, that's in the same sort of performance
That's
class.
sort of what I'm getting at,
Whereas, like, a GPU, there's more incentive to do that. So I think, buying a good quality monitor can last you longer, but I think it's always important to just get in that price to performance ratio, because there are some categories that will rapidly become
Sure.
cheaper, and there are some that you're going to get a lot more longevity out of. So
you're saying don't buy an RTX 3090 of monitors, buy
Yeah, that's right,
a
like-
3070.
your 4K HDR monitors are kind of the 3090s right now. You're spending $3,000 and it's like they're not even that great,
Yeah.
and those are going to be superseded, I would expect, in the next couple of years. But again, the MSI monitor that you got, I would expect that is a quality high-end product that is going to last a long time.
That'll be my Dell monitor all over again.
Yeah, so I'd expect those sort of... So again, you just have to do your research on those sort of things. And yeah, for you, maybe, the next step up will be once we get OLED panels that are worth using, and then that will be like a massive leap in visual quality. And that's the sort of time I expect people to upgrade. So certainly, 5 years is fairly typical for a monitor.
Yeah.